I never considered myself much of a storyteller, but what happened to me last year still feels like a fever dream I can't wake up from. If I don't share it, I'll lose my mind. It started with a simple errand, a task so mundane it feels absurd to think it spiraled into the nightmare I'm about to recount. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had been cleaning out my grandmother's attic, going through her things after she passed. Most of it was old furniture, stacks of magazines, and the occasional moth-eaten sweater. Among the clutter, I found a box. It was unassuming, plain, wooden, no markings, no locks. But when I lifted it, it felt far heavier than it looked, as if it were made of solid lead. It didn't rattle or shift, yet something about its weight felt alive. I brought it downstairs and placed it on the dining room table. I thought maybe there'd be jewelry or heirlooms inside, something valuable my grandmother had hidden away. But when I opened it, there was nothing. Just an empty box. That's when things began to go wrong. That night, as I was lying in bed, I heard a soft knock at my bedroom door. I live alone, and the house was locked up tight. My heart jumped to my throat, and I reached for my phone, only to find it dead despite being on the charger all evening. The knock came again, louder this time. It was deliberate, almost impatient. I grabbed a baseball bat from the corner of the room, slowly creeping toward the door. My hand was trembling as I turned the knob and flung it open, expecting to confront an intruder. But there was nothing, just an empty hallway. That's when I noticed the box. It was sitting at the end of the hallway, directly under the attic door. My stomach dropped. I was sure I had left it on the dining room table. The light in the hallway flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw a shadow move across the wall, something that didn't belong to me. I closed the door and locked it, but I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the crack under the door, expecting to see shadows moving or hear that knock again. I stayed awake until sunrise, and when I finally mustered the courage to check the hallway, the box was gone. Days went by, and I tried to convince myself it had been a hallucination, a result of grief, stress, and exhaustion. But the box wouldn't let me forget. The first truly terrifying encounter happened when I was in my car, driving to the grocery store. I stopped at a red light, glancing at the cars around me. When I looked in my rearview mirror, my breath caught in my chest. The box was sitting on the back seat. I slammed on the brakes and whipped around, but the seat was empty. My hands were shaking as I drove straight home, abandoning my errands. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to call. I considered telling my best friend, Julie, but what could I say? Hey, a haunted box might be following me around. I was losing my grip on reality, and the box seemed to know it. That night, I had a dream, or maybe it wasn't a dream. I was back in my grandmother's attic, surrounded by her things. The box sat on the floor in front of me, its lid wide open. Something was moving inside, something shifting, writhing. I leaned closer, unable to resist, and saw a mass of eyes staring back at me. They blinked in unison, and a voice whispered in my ear, "It's never empty." I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. My heart was pounding, and for a moment I thought I was still in the attic. But I was in bed, safe, or so I thought. I turned on the light, and my blood ran cold. The box was sitting on my nightstand, its lid ajar. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and drove as far as I could without a destination in mind. I ended up at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. I told myself I just needed some space to clear my head, that maybe I'd been hallucinating all along. But when I unlocked the motel room door, I froze. The box was already there, sitting on the bed. I finally broke down and called Julie. I didn't tell her everything I couldn't, but I begged her to come over. She didn't ask questions, just promised to be there in 15 minutes. When she arrived, I showed her the box. She laughed at first, said it looked like an old jewelry box. But when she tried to lift it, her smile faded. "What the hell? It's so heavy." I asked her to open it, but she hesitated. "Are you sure? What's inside?" "I don't know," I said. "That's the problem." She flipped the lid, and her face went pale. "It's empty," she whispered, but she didn't stop staring at it. "What is it?" I asked, but she didn't respond. She just kept looking into the box, her breathing shallow. I grabbed her shoulder to snap her out of it, and she gasped like she'd just come up for air. She shoved the box away and stood up, shaking. "You need to get rid of that thing. Whatever it is, it's not normal." I tried. I drove to a landfill and threw it into the deepest pit I could find. But when I got back to my car, it was sitting in the passenger seat. I buried it in the woods, miles away from civilization. But the next morning it was on my kitchen counter. I even tried burning it. The flames roared higher than they should have, but when they died down, the box was unscathed, sitting in the ashes like it had never been touched. The final straw came one night when I woke up to the sound of whispering. It wasn't coming from outside or from another room. It was coming from inside the box. I opened it, my hands trembling, and found a single piece of paper folded neatly inside. On it was a message, written in my grandmother's handwriting. "You can't escape it. Pass it on." That's when I realized the box wasn't following me. It had chosen me. And now it was my responsibility to find its next victim. But how do you pass on something like this? How do you curse someone else to this nightmare? I'm still looking for the answer. If you ever find a plain wooden box, heavy for its size and impossible to open, please don't take it home. It's never empty. After reading the note, I sat frozen at my kitchen table, the box in front of me. My grandmother's handwriting stared back at me like an accusation. Pass it on? To who? To what end? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more horrifying than the last. Was this why my grandmother had the box? Had she passed it to me on purpose? My stomach churned with the implications. The whispering started again, soft, insidious, like a draft slithering through the cracks in the walls. But this time it wasn't incomprehensible. It spoke in fragmented phrases, barely audible. "Choose, it's waiting." Hungry, I shoved the box away, but the whispers grew louder. It wasn't just in my ears anymore. It was inside my head, ricocheting like a trapped scream. The walls around me felt like they were closing in, the room growing darker despite the overhead light. My breaths came in short gasps, panic clawing at my chest. I had to get out. I grabbed the box, wrapped it in a trash bag, and stormed out the door. My plan: dump it into the river. If fire couldn't destroy it, maybe water could carry it far enough away that it wouldn't find me again. The night was suffocatingly silent as I drove to the old bridge outside of town. The radio refused to work, spitting static no matter how many times I changed the station. Even my phone seemed dead, no signal, no power, though I'd charged it before leaving. The box, now stuffed into the back seat, felt heavier than ever. I could feel its weight in my bones, an unbearable pressure that made my hands tremble on the steering wheel. The whispers had stopped, but I felt no relief, only the eerie calm of something watching, waiting. The bridge loomed ahead, its weathered beams creaking in the wind. I parked the car and grabbed the bag, walking to the edge. The river below was dark and churning, swollen from recent rains. It looked deep enough to swallow anything, even the cursed thing in my hands. I stood at the railing, ready to heave the bag over, but just as I lifted it, the whispers returned, louder than ever. "You can't." My hands froze. The whispers weren't coming from the box anymore. They were coming from the shadows around me. The shadows moved. I swear to God, they moved. They crawled out of the night like living things, sliding across the bridge toward me. The air grew cold, colder than it had any right to be for a spring night. My breath fogged in front of me as the shadows converged, pooling together until they formed a shape vaguely humanoid, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, its limbs bending at unnatural angles. Its face, or what should have been its face, was a void, an empty nothingness that pulled at my gaze like a black hole. It reached out a long, spindly hand, pointing to the box. "Choose," it hissed, the words scraping against my mind like nails on a chalkboard. "I don't understand," I yelled, my voice cracking. "What do you want from me?" The shadow didn't answer. Instead, it moved closer, its presence crushing. The bag in my hands grew impossibly heavy, dragging me to my knees. The whispers grew deafening, overlapping into a cacophony that drowned out my thoughts. "Pass it on." I don't know how long I knelt there, frozen in terror. Eventually, the shadow retreated, dissolving into the night as if it had never been there. The weight of the box lightened, but the whispers remained, softer now, almost pleading. I drove home in a daze, the box sitting in the passenger seat like an unwanted companion. The house felt alien when I returned, too quiet, too still. I set the box on the kitchen table and sat across from it, staring at it like it might suddenly grow teeth and lunge at me. Then I remembered the note. Pass it on. But how? To whom? Was I supposed to just give it to someone? Leave it on a doorstep? Could I even do that to another person? I thought about Julie. She'd seen the box. She'd felt its weight. She'd been shaken by whatever she'd seen or thought she'd seen when she opened it. Could I give it to her? Would that even work? The thought made me sick. The next morning, the box was gone. I tore through the house, searching every room, every closet, even the attic. But it was nowhere to be found. For a moment, I dared to hope that it was over, that maybe the shadow thing had taken it back, or maybe I'd hallucinated the whole thing. But then my phone buzzed. A text from Julie. "Why is this thing on my porch?" What the hell, man? My blood ran cold. I didn't respond, but the phone buzzed again. This time it was a picture, a close-up of the box, sitting innocently on her front step. The caption read, "What's in it?" I called her immediately, my heart pounding. She answered on the first ring. "Is this some kind of joke?" she demanded. "Did you leave this here?" "No," I lied. "Don't touch it, Julie. Don't open it." Her laughter was sharp, nervous. Too late. I drove to her house as fast as I could, running every red light along the way. When I arrived, her car was in the driveway, but the house was dark. The box was gone from the porch. I pounded on the door, yelling her name, but there was no answer. The door was unlocked. I stepped inside, my breath hitching at the silence. The living room was empty, but the box sat on the coffee table, its lid wide open. There was no sign of Julie. The whispers returned, louder than ever. "Choose." I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch and twist, pulling toward me. The same figure from the bridge emerged, its empty face tilted as if observing me. "What did you do to her?" I screamed, my voice breaking. The figure didn't answer. It simply pointed to the box. And then I understood. The box wasn't just a curse, it was a test, a choice. Julie had opened it, and now she was gone. Taken by the shadows, or maybe by something worse. If I didn't pass it on, the same thing would happen to me. But who could I give it to? Could I live with myself knowing I'd condemned someone else to this nightmare? The shadow loomed closer, its presence suffocating. I backed toward the door, my mind racing. And then I made my decision. I grabbed the box, slammed the lid shut, and ran. I didn't know where I was going or what I would do, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to die like this. I ran through the streets like a man possessed, clutching the cursed box as if it were my only lifeline. My mind was a whirlwind of desperation and guilt, every step echoing with the whispers that never stopped. Pass it on, pass it on. I didn't know where I was going. The thought of handing it off to another person, a stranger, a friend, anyone, gnawed at my conscience. I couldn't do it. Not after what happened to Julie. The whispers intensified. My vision blurred. I felt as if the box itself was draining me, pulling every ounce of strength I had left. The city lights stretched and distorted, the world around me twisting into a surreal nightmare. And then I saw her. Julie. She was standing at the edge of an alleyway, her face partially obscured by shadows. Her eyes glinted unnaturally in the dim light, and a strange smile curved her lips. I froze mid-step, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Julie," I croaked. Her voice was light, almost playful. "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you? Something was wrong, very wrong." She stepped closer, and I saw her eyes more clearly. They weren't hers anymore. They were dark, endless voids, like the face of the shadow creature from the bridge. My stomach churned. "You gave me the box," she said, her voice twisting into something deeper, inhuman. "Now I'm free. Thank you." I stumbled back. "Free? What are you talking about?" She laughed, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "The box doesn't just hold a curse. It holds us. We wait. We watch. And when someone opens it, we're given a chance. A chance to leave." I shook my head, refusing to believe it. "No, this can't be real." "Oh, it's very real," she said, her smile widening unnaturally. "And now you're the keeper. The next link in the chain. Unless, of course, you pass it on." Her voice dripped with mockery as she took another step toward me. "But you won't, will you? You're too noble, too good. That's what they always think until it's too late." The whispers swelled, louder than ever, drowning out my thoughts. My grip tightened on the box, my mind racing for a way out. "Julie, no." Whatever was wearing her face tilted her head. "You've already seen what happens when you hold on too long. The box takes and takes and takes. Your life, your soul, everything. But hey, maybe you'll surprise me. Maybe you'll survive." She dissolved into shadow, her laughter echoing in the empty alleyway. I staggered back, gasping for breath, and looked down at the box in my hands. It was open. I don't remember opening it. I don't even remember letting go of it. But there it was, its lid flung wide, and inside, nothing. Nothing but an infinite void, deeper and darker than any shadow. My reflection wavered on its surface, my face pale and gaunt, my eyes sunken. The whispers stopped. And then came the voice, not from outside, but from inside my head. "You are ours now." The darkness in the box surged upward like black smoke, coiling around me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The smoke wrapped tighter and tighter, pulling me toward the box. "No," I choked. "I won't, you already have." I fell. Or maybe the world fell away from me. The ground disappeared, replaced by an endless abyss. The darkness swallowed everything, sight, sound, even thought. I was nowhere and I was nothing. When I woke up, I was sitting at my kitchen table. The box was in front of me, closed and pristine, as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The whispers were gone, but something else had taken their place. A hunger, a need. It gnawed at my insides, relentless and insatiable. My phone buzzed. Mechanically, I reached for it. A text from an unknown number lit up the screen. "You know what to do. Pass it on." My hands trembled as I looked at the box. I wanted to throw it out, burn it, destroy it, but I knew now that none of those things would work. The box wasn't just an object. It was alive, and it had chosen me. A knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find a delivery driver standing there, a small package in his hands. "Got a delivery for you," he said, handing it over. I stared at the package, my blood turning to ice. The label read "From Julie." When I opened it, I found another box inside, identical to the first. I laughed, then a hysterical, broken sound. It echoed through the empty house, bouncing off the walls. 2 boxes, 2 curses, 2 chances to destroy someone else's life. And then I heard the whispers again. Pass it on, pass it on. I smiled, my mind fracturing as the hunger consumed me. And for the first time, I knew exactly what to do.